Welcome back to my lovely IHP community and the 5D collective. And if you're new, since we have a 111 portal and our full moon is coming up, you might want to check out the previous episode. And if not that one, there's a 3-minute one, Owning Sense of Self Maximizes Psychic Gifts and Gains Spiritual Mastery. And that's because a 5D Mystic Mentor Ascension dash. Okay, so I'll read just the little bit so you can understand. When you own the sense of self, you're going to maximize the psychic gifts or spiritual gifts or clairs, neuroscience, neurobiology, all the physicist people, they all look into everything that is with the flow state. So you don't worry, it's not just spiritual stuff if you are mindful, but obviously if you're tuning into 111 portal, you do know about the ascension energies, or anyways, you know about the energies around. Okay, so empowered feminine here, also with my own empowered masculine, and I call divine sometimes, and the left is the masculine and the right is the feminine. Now the masculine is disappointing for those who have rigid, non-bilaterally integrated brains, meaning for an empowered feminine, because they don't access their inner world. And so when that is the case, so remember, people who like to stay in their protection don't want to be around us 5D people. So when somebody doesn't like your positive experiences, you know that it's an individual who is not empowered. They're not whole. And so when somebody is longing, that's the part of where if they take ownership of their nervous system, if they go and take their child parts, then they will own their sense of self in time, their personality patterns, their everything. So it's smart human beings. I learned they're all sciences. I'm the pseudoscience woo-woo lady, remember? Okay. So owning your sense of self has you maximize the psychic gifts initiated by ascension energies, which basically, this is the part of where there's a guy, he does a really great job, Schumann resonance, talking about it. So you could go find him. He talks to you about whenever energy waves are coming in. And that's not only the full moon or these portals, but also the Schumann resonance and geomagnetic space weather guy. He's part of our collective of mystics, and really helpful what he's been sharing. So you achieve spiritual mastery and you maximize these clairs because your bilateral, vertical, and overall integrated brain, owning the sense of self, means you don't get destabilized because you own the soul self. Use your human name. Okay, your child parts are asleep. It's the only way you're going to be a bilaterally and vertically integrated brain is when emotions come up, you can contemplate with the inner growth mindset, with mindfulness practices and mindset skills. You're able to grow more confident and empowered, and to use the good stress because you're in the ventral. So you're anchored in ventral. And that anchored in ventral is going to trigger dysregulation in those who instead want to stay small and protected because they didn't have a child-centric environment, and or some stuff's going down where they're comfortable with protection. That's all you want to remember. So they're not going to be attracted to you, and they won't be into a relationship with you, even if you get remotely couple of dates or something. A whole person is not going to be what a person who lacks wholeness will want, because they don't have healthy self-worth, and they navigate based on the protective drama, and they play out their childhood, the 0 8-year-old. So like Terry Real points out, people marry unfinished business, and like Patrick Tiahan points out, people can make a toxic relationship look good because they don't go heal. And so with that, my necklace, let me fix it before it falls. And again, with the person who owns the sense of self, because you don't get offline, you're using your prefrontal, you won't lose yourself during the decentralization process, and you expand the state of consciousness you are, and you become more of the mindfully living and loving person and or mystic. Okay, so again, if you watch the 3-minute video, you'll be able to understand all of this, and then you can come back around. As for if you're curious about what else came through the 111 portal through the 113 full moon, although if you watch that one, I'm going to be reading to the owning sense of self, so you don't want to watch the 3-minute one. Okay, so wholeness. As I was saying, you have inner child adult. Okay, so you don't play any of Cusco games. That's the emotionally unavailable men and women out there. It is, you have no longing for love, so you're waking up fulfilled, and you're waking up with plans with your family, plans with your career. You got plans going on. Okay, so this 111 portal completely is bringing forth more of whatever it is that you have decided. And we talked about that one. I think yesterday we had some channel guidance because it was Friday. And transmuting pain is done in the capacity for you to be present with your body, mind. If you use the word self, your whole self, spirit, soul, and self, if you use all, and heart, obviously. Okay, so you're curious. That's why you're your own lover. So you can know of those bad habits. Everybody has a potential siren. The people who get out of maladaptive patterns of behavior, drugging, drinking, fucking, inner critic, outer critic, shame cycle, blame, fault, revenge, they will notice their siren. If they are actively looking to be confident in their magic, that they know about healing trauma seriously means that you do not hang out with negative, stupid people who do characterological distinctions and judgments on you as you're healing. So they have low self-esteem and unhealthy self-soothing mechanisms. So others who also drink or do drugs or whatever, you know how to, I want to access my confidence. And that's the lover that I am with the self-compassion. If you don't have that, that's where people don't actually love themselves first, but we do. And so again, the lover here, we don't have men or women who are within those gender stereotypes. Empowered feminine can tell you, as an empowered feminine, men, it's not true that they have a hard time to commit if they have integrity. Women, if they're empowered, don't have a painfulness in starting anything new. No, we are actively aware that disappointment can take place. And today, with all the attachment trauma, we know that essentially, again, those who are in the protection are not going to be with us. Those who are connection, they are going to know how to have that which we talked about yesterday, and it's fierce intimacy. So they can completely, with full-on passion in their ventral energy, connection, right, with me, know, hey, I'm building a long-term relationship with you. So I'm going to keep on leaning into talking about everything and anything just the way I think and feel it. And if I'm having a bad day, I'm not projecting. I'm going to talk, actually have a healthy self-soothing, self-regulating, and more, and not the Zen Master Laundry, because that's not laundry. So it's being able to be in our ventral, in a physiological state of compassion. We share, but it doesn't weigh anybody down. Okay, so people who don't know how to do this yet, it's because they're not mindfully living or loving, and they're not spiritually for the mystic community, if you will. Okay, telling each other the truth, that's a given. And so nobody is doing the silent treatment, holding back. You, in fact, don't build any kind of resentment or, what is it here? Hold on, my notes from Terry Reel's courses. When you have real acceptance and you settle things together, you don't build resentment. But sometimes people will make compromises and they don't just speak what they're thinking. And that's because, as he says, they're afraid to risk the relationship. Empowered feminines and masculines aren't afraid to risk the relationships. I will continue speaking as an empowered feminine, because masculines, yes, when they're empowered, they will be actually interesting and committing and with integrity and what is a whole person. But since I'm empowered feminine, you have in the forefront, what I can tell you is masculines are disappointing, and they get captured consistently by the same distorted feminines that are also disappointing, and that are people who are living out their unfinished business together. So the empowered individuals who have complete intimacy with their whole self are the ones that I am talking with. And that's why, as an empowered feminine, I can tell you that no one avoids conflict at all, because none of us are afraid of anything. I'm going to use an example. So passionate intimacy is what the empowered feminine will know, thanks to speaking truth with complete self-expression. And I'll show you what I mean, which is this. You also don't lose people, because it's ridiculous. You're not in my pocket. So man, it's not because he has a hard time to commit. You don't lose people. Twin flames, soulmates, it doesn't matter what the name is, whatever the connection is. Again, connection is it's amazing. Believe me, when I got Twin Flame 1, it was completely all I could be appreciative of. Then I got Twin Flame 2, I'm like, haha, so it's not just the one. I got the ones. And then I got Twin Flame 3, and I'm like, wow. And then I got to see a lot more, and then I got to meet soulmates, and that's even more amazing. And then I got to get attachment trauma informed. And so everything that comes from the past, you can totally know there's no tragedy for an empowered feminine. 5D Mystic, again, mentor for any of you who are in situations where you're empowered. The mindfulness mindset and mindset practices support you to process that which comes up. But when you see outside YouTube land how they are treating anything, you'll notice what they do is make the masculine out to be dumb, like they do with men gender stereotypes. And as a woman, I have to abstain. So I'm going to be talking as a woman, an empowered feminine, okay? And letting you know there's no evil Knievel medieval when you meet men. They are definitely not physically safe, that's for sure, as long as they have small egos, which run with their unavailability to their whole self. So if they go get Terry Real and Patrick Tian, they're going to be empowered men. And if they're empowered men, then they're going to be empowered masculines and empowered feminines because they own this. Distorted feminines, if they go to Terry Real, they get out of the little Cinderella thing that he mentions, in fact. And if they go to Patrick Tian also, they can learn. But when people don't know how to be their self, they don't tell each other everything. When you do, you don't hide anything, okay? And you don't speak to somebody in a way of insulting them. You can get passionate. I have heritage from Naples, Italy, so it's always passionate. There's no way I'm not going to have a face-off with you. If you and I are romantically in a long-term relationship, you can ask one of my 4-year relationship it was. We are family friends. I won't be interviewing him, but you could ask him. He can tell you all about the day he said to me, he probably has a better memory than I do, but today he said, okay, we're going to my boss's house. Remember, don't be you. Or it was something about, don't talk about that feminine stuff you usually talk about. And at that time, we had went from open relationship back to monoamory relationship. And that's for a reason that I won't go and describe. But the point was, he was telling me not to be myself. And I gave him my 2 cents, as well as though knowing that as a partner, I was going to have to show up to some events. But I said, look, you and I right now are going to go, obviously, but try to not include me unless it's really necessary, because obviously I understand that there might be events as you grow, because he decided to do business. And so as a business owner, obviously anybody is going to have to present themselves. But I said, keep in mind that this is not something that I'm finding in any way, shape, or form amazing. And he explained, and I said, yeah, no, I got it, but it doesn't matter. That's where you come to agree, of course, of knowing what it is to participate with society, but you say, I'm not really happy. I mean, disappointed is a big word, but it's basically, I completely thought you would stand by me, not tell me not to be me. What is this? But at the same time, explaining cultural norms, which is what he did, which is what I already knew, because the Italians of the... it's not only the Italians. As a solo polyamory person and a woman who's empowered as independent, you can better bet that Americans and Italians are equally funny to a person like me, because they don't think I'm whole. So here's what an empowered feminine, let me add to this story. I have a favorite, one of my favorite, well, I have all favorites, but this is a father figure, and he's my teenage boyfriend's father. So when we get to meet up as family, because that's what it is, he consistently throughout the years asks if I am whole. And the last time he did that, I knew what he meant, but I still answered my way. And I'm like, I am whole. Yes, I'm whole. Who is he? And I'm like, no, I'm whole. And no, I was like, do you think I won't introduce you if that day comes? Don't worry. But my point is, people out there have this idea, not all, but a good portion, that people are not whole by themselves. Sounds ridiculous. No, feels ridiculous to a whole person. You see what I'm saying? So this is what I am sharing. Again, fierce intimacy. Thank you, Terry Real. People who need that, go to him. I don't need Terry Real. I know how to speak up, and I'll speak in your face. And if you don't like it, then that's okay. I'll still speak in your face. That's the romantic. So I won't be hiding my emotion, my thought. Okay, so empowered feminines, don't get in your face in a way of insulting you. However, like we all know, interpretation, right? So it doesn't matter how I can explain to you what I and how I'm coming across to somebody, they're going to have their own interpretation. But what I can tell you is an empowered feminine and empowered masculine will continue to say and to talk. Okay, so this is the one thing that will be an indication. If you're an empowered person, you know how to keep on addressing something that is of importance to you. You also know when to stop. And so I have a number. It's called 3. 3 is a charm. Tops is 5. But also there's a gut feeling that I get as an intuitive mystic with my relationship with God and Akash. And really, I'm going to say probably the scientists know how to explain it too, because they have there's a lot of them. And so I learned from some, but not all, right? And neuroscientists, they have a lot with the neuroscientists, neurobiologists. I was watching a lady, so they know a lot about neural feedback. Okay, so bottom up, top down. That's why they make us out to be little objects. When you hear some that don't have a lot of the interpersonal neurobiology and PDP framework, they definitely objectify you. They don't know that your self is a verb when you're whole, the way Dr. Daniel Siegel teaches me and others, and that when you're supporting somebody to be their self, that they are a whole self once they're healed completely with the higher self. So even if you want to tell me the self is an illusion because you are somebody who doesn't believe in it, it's not an illusion. I am a self. That I can be a flexible or a rigid one, that makes sense, because yes, the rigid ones, they're not just a self. They're actively an identity, and they go rigid because they don't have access to both sides of their brain. And so they don't use the default mode network down-regulated like my brain is, and anybody who puts mindfulness mindset into practice. I don't need to give up the self. And in fact, it sounds ridiculous to even say that it's an illusion, because I am experiencing consciously the life that I lead. So the people who make these discourses of illusion of free will, of illusion of self, or that you don't have it at all, their discourses and qualitative analysis come from, and some are hypotheses or just things they're sharing, like I'm sharing right now. This is subjective, bringing it all together. But see, this is the part, you don't cancel me. I'm going to want to be seen, soothed, safe, secure, meaning I'm here. The minute you don't see me as a human being who does have a name, what up? What is this? So using, to me, the word illusion of self is not accurate, because it's not an illusion. I exist in this body with those implicit and explicit memories. And the bottom up and top down come together because I am voicing who I am to you. And you disregarding that is going to not make me upset, because I know how to be Maria without you seeing me. In fact, that's the whole part of nothingness that, let me go read to Sadhguru, which is where, though, helping you to understand, humanly speaking, how it works. Because, again, philosophy is what it sounds like when somebody is interpreting something from only the spirituality community, which is why I bring to you the sciences, the human sciences, from the science people who don't do spiritual is above, and really they come together. And to me, as I bring the conciliancy approach, they tell me how to explain to you how to be yourself, with flaws, with integrity, with love, with what I learned from Jesus, with the intelligence of you. So for Sadhguru, if there's love in your heart, it will guide you through your life. Love has its own intelligence. And then there's another one that he shares. One virtue is not about practicing morality. The greatest virtue is to be inclusive of all life. Whole people know that. Whole people are non-traumatized people with a secure attachment. So we have the capacity to regulate independently of relationships. Thank you, Pat Ogden. And that's why you're not whole because of another. And this is that inner secure attachment that in the Polywise and Polysecure book, Jessica Fern talks about, but it's where it's not about poly. You don't need that. To be your secure inner world, need you to choose to have that self-compassion for yourself. The circle of compassion does not work and does not move the energy of life if one person is missing, and that person is you. Jack Kornfield, PhD. And sometimes, as Bezel Vanderkolk points out, it takes 20 years before a person is completely healed. So as long as people don't go, and again, tend to themselves, humanly speaking, they don't have to. They might want to follow the fancy man and woman suit who let them act out their manners, which is really sad, because it's a 0-8-year-old that's playing a game that's not even a game. It's their trauma playing out in the world, and their imagination too. Um, so one moment, because there's a lot of quotes from Sadhguru. That's true. That one is a good one too. If you think you are big, you become small. If you know you are nothing, you become immense. That is the beauty of being human. When you're an integrated human, when you're a whole human, when you have a self that becomes a verb, as Dr. Daniel Siegel would point out, and if that's challenging, then they know how to tell you that and how to work with that, which would be rigidity coming up and or chaos, because those are the two forms that come up when you have a non-bilaterally integrated brain. So when there's a lack of integration of the brain and there's a lack of ownership of the solo self, and therefore you can't live that life of meaning and connection as harmoniously as those of us who instead do, with connection consistently on. We tell the truth, we have intimacy because of it, we have passion because we don't get rid of connection. And so the stories. So not being afraid to lose anyone, that's the part of why you don't actually hold back in general, but it means you're empowered. And so you also don't insult somebody. So if at a certain point I'm very much clear you don't want to talk, you don't want to tell me what's going on, by the third, if not fifth time, that's it. Now I'm done. I will have accepted, for whatever reason, I don't need to know why you don't want to talk. And this has happened to me more than once. Thanks to my facade friend again, I know how to just allow myself to remember how to leave it alone. But that doesn't mean I won't try to have ourselves close out a communication, because that's what empowered people do. We talk like adults do. So we don't shy away from it. That's what people with integrity, men or women, do. And that's what a securely attached person will do. But you cannot actually make anybody tell you what they're thinking. Okay, so here's where this is going to be a friend story. She doesn't let me know that she doesn't like touching, and I'm a hugger. And I see as she skips away from me 3 times. I'm okay with being rejected, because again, I'm a whole 3-year-old heart. I don't need you to like me. Not a grown-up who needs to make more. I have friends. But even if not, this is the part. I don't get offended. So people who still get offended if somebody doesn't like you got, I'm not decent enough. You know the story. To be saluted. This man's 50 and over. He's got a wife. She's never out with him. And he's basically what others will say a sleazeball. I don't feel his sleaziness. I just know that I was never interested in becoming a friend. And he made it into a deal, an evening where he's drunk, because that's the other part. The only time people know how to speak their truth, when they're drunk. But then they don't know how to speak their truth when they're sober. You know, this guy had many opportunities to tell me what he thinks. So he doesn't have balls. He only got quote unquote balls because he was drunk and in a mood, which doesn't make it impressive. It doesn't make it upsetting either. I met all the cowards I needed to meet as a teenager. There's no Lucifer. It's just people who don't know how to behave, and they could with therapists. That's what an empowered feminine has to say to you. So unimpressed by emotionally unavailable men and women all over, and those gender stereotypes, which are beyond, I'm gonna just like want to throw up, not choke. But the choking man, that's one of the latest videos. I can't even believe that woman. She's watching him as if she's actually allowing him to speak. I'm wondering, did they review their conversation before getting on screen? Where they're like, excuse me, you're gonna go on screen and say to men that they have to be with a woman who's smaller than them so that they can choke them because they need to know that they can be overpowered by a man? I don't want to be with you. And I hope no woman wants to be with you or any of the men that you talk to. But then again, are there? Yes, there are. Yes, there are. So the people who are comfortable with protection, their threat response. And I'm going to leave that alone and go back to storytelling. Because seriously, when I think of these gender stereotypes, my brain says men have agreed to allow themselves to be talked about as stupid human beings. I'd be offended, and my men friends have said, you're not a man, and I've said, fine, but that's my opinion, and I will stand behind it. So cowards is the word that I'll use if you want to compare yourself to basically a stupid idiot, and this is where it stops. So empowered feminines, not about us wanting to treat anybody like an idiot, but if they don't allow us to be emotional. The fancy lady in a suit. I love her. She just made me think of the Flintstones in one of her latest ones. Men, so remember, she learned how to take care of Johnny and the fire and this and that and that. So her hysteria, I'm like, wow. Yeah, Flintstones treat each other better than what you're looking like right now. And so, yes, gender stereotypes really. Yeah. And let me go back to my stories. Okay, so there was the, I lost my train of thought though. Passive aggressive. Ah, got it. I'm going to give you this story instead. Whatever it was that I was going to give you, it's okay. So this story is not mine, it's external. And it's in my social circle in general. So I'll keep all this stuff private. But I'm actually being very much told, and this is a woman, of unhappiness in monogamous relationship. Okay, so I'm in favor of open relationship, solo poly here. And once again, like with my other story that I was sharing with you all, I'm a humanist, but one will say you are probably a feminist. No, but if I have to pick, I'm a woman, so I'm not going to stand on the side of men. And this is where it's not about right or wrong, it's just I won't, especially with men thinking that it's okay to continue to be physically threatening to us. There's just something that you're gonna, if I'm gonna pick the side I'm safest with, it's going to be only women. So it's not that I want that. I really wish it were different. I see too many men actively not participating, too many, and following the fancy woman and man in suits. So anyways, it's not about right or wrong, it's the safety. I don't feel safe with men, no, not of them. It doesn't even matter because I haven't seen enough empowered ones. And even if they say they are, the reality is, I don't believe you. That's how awful it is. But again, my body instinctively with that whole bear man thing said man because the body is intelligent. The ego gets into each other's head, right? So the ego has, and that's the left mode, implicit bias, explicit bias, has has biases come up. And so this is the moment of truth where you can be self-aware, accountable, regulate. And that's why neutrality and duality is the wisdom. So spiritual wisdom, and also being able to know about, let me look for some words I was using before, knowing about present moment living, okay? And the law of attraction and love, we're going to be talking about those tomorrow. That's what the integrated brain gets to share with you all. I'm always in the now, and I'm always able to provide with anything that I say something of why it comes up. So yeah, as I was even speaking about men, I'm like, yeah, nope, I don't want them. There's too much of their physical wanting. There's too much of them not taking ownership of their child parts and becoming emotionally available. And so they're all dangerous because all it takes is me to say something smart and you're actually an idiot and you're going to be reactive. And this man on screen who makes and proves a point. And there's other men too that I mean, I won't even begin to start how how frustrating it is to have to deal with men who are stupid and who completely are disconnected in a way of not knowing who I am. So my facade friend, like I've been repeating, he's the reason why I don't point out because, I mean, really, if we have been interacting in any way, shape, or form, I have enough smart people that tell me it's very clear who you are. Therefore, your smart people tell you if you are who you are and you know what you're presenting, and then you got people who are disconnected. They're facades because they're just the self-fulfilling prophecy and insecure people who lack wholeness and are lacking that. Therefore, they long to connect, and desperately they will connect with whoever, it doesn't matter how. And that's their longing. And like my facade friend, as I use him with that example, because he and I are friends because we love each other, yes, but at the end of the day, when he did what he did, he showed me that he didn't hear what I said to him, which was very important to me. And that's why he's the most important story that I'll share with you, not twin flames or soulmates, no, him. Because I don't speak to anybody about what I'm perceiving the minute I begin to see you playing games. And they consistently confirm that they, when they're insecurely attached, emotionally unavailable men, women, or theys, you're not being heard at all. If you are a person who knows who you are, you're an empowered feminine, you will not be seen because they will not have heard you. And they will not have cared to incorporate what you will have spoken. They will in fact have their ego talking over you and tainting every single word that comes out of your mouth, or completely you're just not even there. So again, being nothingness is immense because you really don't take anything of those who do not go and take their trauma to heal it personally. It's not Lucifer. It's human beings who don't know how to be whole inside, which is where when people don't understand this, all the men know how to say in women, did you say it clearly? Did you do it this way? You're asking me to offend a human being who is basically miserable. You're just asking me to be a mean human being. You obviously don't know what I'm talking about, which is where they lack the compassion. They lack self-awareness. They also lack the intelligence to understand a conversation. That's when people have stereotypes. So once again, a lot of different things we're looking at. But with this portal, what I can tell you is that for the 5D collective of empowered feminines, we're having a good time. Got smart people out there, empowered men for sure. There are plenty. I just don't know enough of them. But again, it's also just consistently seeing the threat lady and man in their visceral, in their gut, perpetuating what is horrible, and then others who podcast interview people like this and showing this man. I mean, I really, that this is, I didn't know what words to say, that there's men who will allow themselves to support that, and women. So at the end of the day, leave it alone, because it's a bigger picture deal. It's in time. So let's allow ourselves to let the younger generation know nobody, man, woman, or they, don't let anyone treat you like a little piece of shit or touch you like that. And as for everybody else who wants to keep talking about their threat response, just leave that to those who will be the ones who are in our lower frequency, as they will be in their lower frequency. The ones who want to play Cusco the rest of their life. They're going to be their adaptive child parts. So they get to perpetuate gender stereotypes with the masses. They get to continue being interested in people beating each other up in all those trashy, shitty movies. They get to keep on using the nightmare of neuroplasticity, and their brains will not be of any interest because really it's full of shit. And that's where they can sit with their lack of usage of an imagination that can include what is, by the way, for smart people, entrepreneurship. Novelty and expansion. So they spend a lot of time in rumination, like that Zen master. It's unfortunate business. But we are a collective, so I need to keep that one in mind, because I'm speaking to ones of you who are lovers, and they're actually very fond of the reward system that comes from lust and vengeance. Like, they actually get a thrill off of it. It's disgusting, yes, but they do. It's called between, what is it called? Actually, there's an avoidant. He explains it really great, because he also learns about sciences. He's an attachment coach. He does the styles. And so he explained it because he's telling you, don't be with an avoidant, which I agree, because they won't actually want you. They just like the attention. So they'll come in and out, and they'll connect because they're into that. And in fact, it's a shared fantasy stage, but they don't even do the shared fantasy stage necessarily. It's all in their mind. They highs and rewarding. And so the intermittent reinforcement is more powerful and is more addictive. They like the roller coaster, ups and downs, and they're addicted to somebody who is emotionally unavailable because they don't think they deserve love. And that's why that avoidant who got on screen, it's unfortunate business that she decided not to go to therapy, because she's going to end up into another one of those relationships, and then say that people are fucked up, when it's no, you just didn't go get healed and get out of that longing in your chest because you chose not to, for a story. That's the left, no, that's the ego. So the longer people wait to become whole, the longer, they're just going to settle into it, because at a certain point, again, you marry your unfinished business, or you just go solo, because solo, not solo poly, no, solo like all alone, because it's easier to live out in a fantasy land than to actively try, as you're afraid of failure. You see, cowards always become cowards. They don't move anywhere else. Which is why they need to stop blaming Lucifer for their trauma, because that's what it is. When you see people with their bad behavior, they talk about it as promiscuity. I say we use different words to talk about those who are uninterested in getting their ventral vagal online. I'm going to say that can present a very good opportunity, because you know what works for the ego, right? To actively make them an offer? No, challenge the ego. But they can twist their words, which is why the man who makes us know about what groundedness means is that you can always make something falsifiable. Although, here's what I'm going to say to you all. People who are Cuscos and they get into their ups and downs and need to play this stuff out, they will wield their swords. And they know how to wield it. But they know where it's coming from. And that is the difference, is that there's not a pure intent. So at the end of the day, when you're out of this moment where you were playing out something that is a battle that you can take care of with a good therapist, not with another human being, you're going to be at ground zero and you're just going to play it out again. When instead I'm presenting to you actually what I'm feeling and thinking. I'm not doing it because I need to get my system into a fight. No, I'm doing it because I'm sharing with you something. And so the minute you will not have welcomed it, you will not have seen it, I won't have anything else to do. You, in fact, have shown me again and again and again that this is not an intimate, passionate, or connected relationship. This is a facade, which means it's fake, which means I have closure. And I don't need to address anything with you because you've also showed me your lack of integrity and the lack of character that you have, but also because I'll have the compassion to know, wow, some shit's done or going on. You just don't know what the fuck it is. And I don't care to point it out because I ain't your therapist. Okay, so lack of whole people, what they don't understand is they're going to bite their butt every time that they get paused again, because they'll know that what they did was out of spite. They'll know that what they did was because they're upset. They'll know, like any child does who grows up and then perceives those anger. There's a healthy way to get rid of that. Yes, it's called Patrick Tiahan in good therapy. So the straightforward equation is wholeness is here thanks to a bunch of us who are whole, the therapists, and that's why we have empowered feminines and empowered masculines coming together as our story, the last one, for where connection, passion, and intimacy are easy for those of us who are whole. So like I said, my one relationship, we went from an open one to closed one because they weren't in agreement of staying open. I agreed at that time because that's where we were at. We were in a long-term commitment. And then when it ended, I have funny stories for that one too, but I'm going to leave it alone. And as it moved forward for me, having twin flames completely allowed me to become a whole different world, but a person who consistently loves to love. So I have bonds now, and that goes beyond the physical plane. And that's why the twin flame connection is particular, is because you don't cut anything. You will consistently perceive those who are not only twin flames, also soulmates, but for sure you're twin flame, and that's because you are connected as well. There's a way they tell you you're one, but I'm going to leave that one alone. So again, let's not play too much with the imagination. The one thing that's easy for an empowered feminine is to understand that her clairs are expanding, and that's why we thank all of our twin flames and our soulmates, because the one thing is that we're going to expand. As love consistently navigates through every single one of the veins of an empowered feminine, and as for emotionally unavailable, uninteresting, unsatisfying, very much annoying masculines, they can keep getting captured by all those distorted feminines and having a good time as they get their golden rings and the next 12 dozen roses or whatever it is that and so on and so forth. So that's for those people. And as I'm talking to a woman who, in the meantime, the story is making me very understandable that there's unsatisfaction and that there's not the willingness apparently to work with this. And this is marriage, church, all of that stuff, okay? Oh, don't get me started on the men who come at me and they're married. And I'm like, yes, I'm polyamory. You're not one of the ones. So get over yourself or go somewhere else. It's just unimpressive again. And then why are you making a big deal? Well, I'm not making a big deal. I'm pretty sure you're in a monogamous, monoamorous relationship. So I don't really know how you're here and doing this. And I'm not actually making a big deal. I'm presenting to you what I would think you'd take ownership of, which is you chose to get married and you choose to be monogamous. You could always have a conversation. And here's the part about when you do meet men who care about their relationship and they try to actually have a conversation with a stingy woman who doesn't care about the relationship, but who just wants to keep the man for themselves. And that's really sad. So when you meet couples who don't care about each other's emotional, mental, and physical well-being, that's sad, but it's also explainable because you got adaptive child people who are insecure. And so they don't know how to actually care because they don't know wholeness. And so they're in a relationship out of the whatever it is that happened, however many years, and so on and so forth, which is why at that point it's better to get a tarot real. But to even get a tarot real, it needs to mean that you care about your mental, emotional, physical inner world, which people are like, why is everybody making such a big deal about trauma? So that's the part of where you're going to have groups of people who are going to stay in those gender stereotypes, and all that, which is when you hear somebody say, as they grow old, they grow bored. Yeah, that don't happen to whole people. We don't grow bored. We grow more humor together. We grow more partners. That's what true love is. So you grow as a team because that's the point. You share intellect, you share heart, and you share body. Obviously, otherwise there's no romance. Because we can have platonic relationships. The polyamory community knows about those ones, and asexual, great asexual. So it's not about the physical body. What I love about the generation of now is that they are aware of their inner world, so much so that it's not confusing to me why we have all these different groups. Actually, it's very much an honor to be participating, to do my best to leave for the younger generation that which is secure attachment. Empowered feminines are every gender and non-gender, because it's your body and your heart with your gut, with your mind, with it being integrated, and yourself, your child parts. There's not one thing. Okay, all these parts, but there's no narrative yet. Please put the narrative. No, we have 3 nervous system ways that Stephen Porges tells us. And you know how to access your ventral vagal. And you know what your sympathetic is for and what your dorsal vagal is for. You know what your modulated embodiment and your dysregulated embodiment is for. And so you know what your fight, flight, freeze, flop, drop, cry, attach, collapse, submit, please appease. You know what your embodied brain is for from your nervous system, number 1. And that your child parts are stored in their very age group. And so you know Peter Levine. That's why I know the generation is going to have heaven in their body. And that's why I totally understand the women who say, no marriage, no fucking the women. And there's a whole bunch of them, and I forget where it is, but this guy's like, aren't they extremists? Well, I mean, obviously you could call them extremists, but again, seeing a man want to choke a woman on screen, no, they're not extremists. And seeing men who keep telling me to mind my own business and that they're okay with being basically dicks, well, again, as a woman, I'll stand with the women and call us extremists. In the meantime, we're not. And in the meantime, those of us who know what love is about, it's called, do you have actual balls, vaginas to be a securely attached person or not? If you don't, go hang out with a fancy lady man in suit. As long as they keep on having a good time, we're not going to really miss being around people or being in relationships of emotionally unavailable, again, mentally unintelligent and physically unintelligent people. So the younger generation is doing great and dandy. It's the older ones who can learn a thing or two, which is what we're going to get to do all here together. And so again, wholeness. You have no longing for love because you are love. You know love, and you know intimacy, passion, and connection. The woman that I presented polyamory to, what are you, crazy? That was a passive-aggressive way, because of being embarrassed, that I presented something that is not within the societal norm, and that would be looked at as, I want to cheat, I want to fuck, I want to do. So with stigma. I didn't react. I just made sure I wasn't trying to offend you. Please let me know that I didn't offend you. I'm just presenting to you an opportunity, because if he loves you and he knows you're that unsatisfied physically together, I'm pretty sure he might. Maybe he won't. Maybe he will. And here's where, as Terrio points out, not having the balls to risk the relationship and then being unsatisfied. So you don't grow old and bored because you grow old and bored. It's because you hide your own feelings to yourself, and then you come out with bullshit. And then instead of saying yes, you say, no, I'm going to go cheat. Monogamous woman, basically. She doesn't say it that way, but that's essentially. So instead of having an open, honest conversation of what's going on, knowing everything else that they know about you, you're going to do that instead, or break it off completely. It's not necessary. I mean, it is an alternative, but it's unnecessary. You haven't even tried to have the conversation. And when somebody instead has, and they get turned down, at least they tried. And here's what love does. Oh, I care about my family. This is the man who presented the opportunity, and I'm going to be okay with it. At the end of the day, I have money, I have food, I have everything I need, and that's a person who's a man who cares about his family, who has the integrity to actually, this is the sweetest man. And it's really sad, because the woman, I saw her, and I have heard of the way she holds on to him in this unnecessary, just really distorted, feminine, awful way. And so women, man, they can all be basically not lovers. And that's the minute that they don't care about your happiness, and that they don't know how to tell you the truth, and then, so on and so forth. So secure attachment people know how to speak. The ones who are not, that's the part they don't know how to speak. With Terrio, they can learn how to speak to each other as couples. And with our 111 portal, Well, again, intimacy, passion, and love. Definitely on the menu for the empowered feminines and masculines out there, 5D mystics, and mindfully living and loving people. Thank you for stopping by. Like, share, and subscribe. It'll help the channel grow. And for practical video practices, subscribe to Fanbase or Spotify or other podcast platforms. And there's Ask Maria Opinionated Calmness episodes on the Spotify and other podcast platforms. And then you can look at the community. There's a bunch of other stuff. But again, thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.